Wouldn't it be great if your astrologer forecasted the second half of July and not just the first half? Well, get ready, the second half is coming right up. On July 15th, we see Mars and Chiron at the midpoint of Jupiter in the North Node. This means that the inflammatory nature of repressed or overly expressed Martian energy mixes itself with a North Node that is practically on the galactic center. And it will continue to transit the galactic center for 3+ weeks. This bottled up, masculine energy is also adding itself to Jupiter, who is starting the trading day in trine with the moon. This favorable aspect may mean a decent or at least an active start, but we have to look ahead to the end of the day to see if this aspect will be enough to make some growth stick. Pluto and Jupiter open the day sesquiquadrate to the ascendant, which you now know from previous videos means that people will need to adjust to the changing market. Let's just hope they can keep up. Pluto and Jupiter were two of the major players in the coronavirus outbreak. Their conjunction together with Mars earlier this year allowed the rapid expansion of the virus to spread. The rapidness coming from Mars, the expansion coming from Jupiter. It spread without fading away due to a protective and regenerative biosphere coming from Pluto. With the ascendant in Virgo, the purification of the collective will most likely come deeper into play, and the markets will be reacting to either continued expansion in the virus or news that the growth of the virus may have a progressing solution on the way, or that it may be slowing down again. At the close of trade, things aren't looking too promising. The moon is conjunct the descendant, it's opposing the ascendant, and in a tight semi-square to Mars, which is sesquiquadrate to the ascendant, making it seem like the markets will be changing too rapidly for people to keep up. And add in the fact that Vesta is contra-parallel to Pluto at the start and finish of the trading day could mean that a seemingly self-regenerating virus is continuing its tear through the collective in its protective and regenerative biosphere, which we know comes from Pluto. Pluto and Vesta both have to do with regeneration. With Ceres parallel to the ascendant at the close of trade, it seems like the end of day promises to be an eventful one. This could be a tone-setting hump day that could see the markets continuing to grow and regenerate again, despite news that may seem contrary to that, like the news of the virus continuing to spread. Even still, all these things may finally catch up and reality may set in on the markets for a moment, but for that we will have to watch and see. Now moving on to July 17, 2020, at the end of the day, Vesta occupies the critical degree of 19 Cancer and is in a conjunction-like parallel aspect to the moon and to Pluto. This makes it likely we will finish the afternoon with some highly emotional trading. Our focus may be on personal gain rather than on transpersonal ends. Although there is nothing wrong with personal gains, there is something wrong in the long term when money is being invested in companies one doesn't really believe in, simply because they can gain personally from the investment. Ultimately, the feeling of stooping to a low level to gain personally seems to resonate with this. If the compulsive natures of these watery planets, meaning Moon and Pluto, aren't handled with care, and the proper awareness is not awakened in the masses, the awareness of the harsher tones of this planetary combination, then people may be drawn to utilize this in a non-optimal way. Now moving on to July 20th, 2020. Ceres, which represents the process of transformation, is opposed to the Virgo ascendant at the opening of the day. With the ascendant opposed to Ceres, it gives the feeling like it's at the transformational stage of looking itself in the mirror. The parts of the market that have been repressed may be highlighted at this time, as Vesta begins the trading day contra-parallel to Jupiter, acting like a conjunction, blending these energies. Vesta is trying to pull the focus inward, and Jupiter is exploring and expanding either way. Whether it's an inner exploration or a pulling outward against the currents of Vesta in defiance, the conjunctions are said to be neutral, acting in good or bad ways depending on the person, the circumstance, the level of awareness that one has of the energies and their ability to control them. With Jupiter as the lead planet of a bull pattern in effect at the start of trading on this day and retrograde, I'm inclined to say that we may be seeing the market focused on sustaining and growing itself even if that growth is not correlating to the actual growth of the larger national or economic collective. With the Sun making its opposition to Saturn just a couple hours after the market closes, we can reasonably assume we may feel like we are falling on some hard times, especially the Moon's conjunction to the Sun in opposition to Saturn earlier that day. The new Moon is bound to bring with it a turn in the tides. With both the Sun and Moon close to exiting Cancer, along with these Saturn aspects, expect a time to sell off or buy in, and expect that action to drive the change in those lunar tides. As we move on to July 22nd, 2020, the Sun enters Leo, bringing back a bit of the vibrant, instinctual energy we lost when the ascendant shifted from Leo into Virgo earlier in the month. With Vesta in exact opposition to Jupiter, I can say we should see more focus on supporting and growing the market rather than on the outer economy on which the market is based. With Vesta's parallel to the midheaven, we should see a day where the driving forces of economic productivity, meaning the people of the nation, are opening up to the realization that they have been over-dependent upon the growth of a market that is driven by speculation rather than on the actual value produced by those who make the market up, the people themselves. The generative nature of Vesta may breathe life into the markets on this day. Regardless of this realization, and the opposition to Jupiter itself may be enough to stimulate growth despite the harsh nature of the opposition. With the Moon in trine to Uranus at market close, this could spell some good news for tech stocks, making everyone feel a bit better about them. With the Sun in Leo trining the brand new Sagittarius ascendant, we can expect a nice lively finish to this date, where things should feel vibrant, especially as the Moon sextiles the North Node on the galactic center, bringing all the energy previously discussed into practical reality. As Jupiter sextiles Neptune to finish out the day, we should see the illusions and fantasies of today's stock market luring investors in for more. As we move on to July 27th, 2020, this is set to be an action-packed day in the economy. Because of all the exact planetary aspects and the aspect patterns that are in effect when the market opens, as well as the fact that the market is opening with the ascendant at the critical 17th degree of Virgo. Mercury is set to square Mars a little less than 2 hours after the market closes, which means we will still get the Martian energy calling us to do something with that capital that's burning a hole in our pocket. Mercury has enough distance now from its retrograde period a couple weeks prior for him to be fully back in action and functioning optimally, which should shift our focus over to our desires in the outer world. Jupiter makes its exact sextile to Neptune in the middle of the day and takes away the harsh realities of life while letting us sink deeper into our money-making fancies. Venus squares Neptune in the middle of the afternoon, goading us to act on our material desires. Consume, invest, buy into the dream. But wait, not so fast. There are some major aspect patterns occurring at this time. There's the Thor's hammer, which is two planets in a 90-degree square, both in a sesquiquadrate, which is a 135-degree aspect to a third planet, between the Sun, Moon, and Neptune. There may be light shed on the pharmaceutical industry, which may take the form of harsh criticism and damper people's feelings, especially in those areas of investment. This could hurt this area of trading. Venus is involved in an even weaker Thor's hammer, which should still be noted between Neptune, Venus, and the Moon. This means areas involving Venus and Gemini will also be affected, such as material possessions and commerce in general. A continued weakening of consumerism due to bad news on the retail and luxury shopping fronts could happen. To end the day, Neptune makes a T-square with Neptune, Venus, and the midheaven, leaving Venus as the focal planet of this T-square. I would say that lots of tension here puts the focus even more so on the pharmaceutical industry, with the Virgo-ruled midheaven and the markets looking to that industry for a possible COVID-19 vaccine or other such good news to build on. This Neptune opposition could indicate some good or bad news on the drug or vaccine front, But with Venus under so much tension in Gemini, it may be that the news we get isn't the kind of pleasure-filled Venusian type news that people want to hear. With the grand trine between the Sun, the Ascendant, and Chiron, maybe we can expect a bit of an afternoon correction, in some sense, maybe in a good way, but this may just be a way to help stop the bleeding if what I mentioned earlier gets out of hand. Although there's something else happening at the opening of the markets on this day that could have a profound effect. There is a mystic rectangle involving Neptune, Mercury, Ascendant, Jupiter, and Pluto. I won't even bother to break this down first. I'll just put the graphic on the screen and I'll explain the possible effects. Generally, this has a lot of flowing and harmonious aspects. The trine between Pluto and Jupiter and the critical degree of that 17 Virgo ascendant creates a powerful charge of energy that could see the wealth cycle acting up once again, in a good way. Pluto and Jupiter sextile Neptune, a planet under considerable tension at the start of the day, with its opposition to the ascendant, and later its opposition to the midheaven. With this being the case, we can see how the criticism of the pharmaceutical and luxury shopping industries may not cause the markets to go down. These tougher aspects, however, could provide just enough tension to get the markets acting on all this positive energy that this mystic rectangle has to offer. Because Neptune trines Mercury in Cancer, which is sextile to the Virgo ascendant, this could loosen up people's savings and help them trust that money into the markets on the continued fantasies coming from Neptune of future vaccines and more big pharma drama might be a reason to spend. With the close of trade on this day looking less stressful than the beginning, and even still with the mystic rectangle in effect to start the day, there's a decent chance that the markets could respond favorably, motivated by all the tension-filled aspects mixed with the right amount of balance and harmony to make this day an extremely eventful and hopefully a profitable one. Moving on to July 30th, 2020, about a day before, day after, kind of covering this whole week, there is a Moon-Mars trine with the Moon within a degree of the IC and opposing the midheaven. Both the Moon and Mars are at 17 degrees of their respective fire signs, and Mars is in conjunct the Mars in the chart of the New York Stock Exchange. This could be an active week. The weakening mystic rectangle at the start of trade is still in effect by this date. The Mars placements here, touching on these critical degrees, will make for some interesting trading around this date for sure. Because a lot of what was discussed earlier is still in play, even if it's growing weaker. I won't go into too much detail on this date, except to look at the open and the close of trade and see where we might wind up. It must be noted that at the beginning and the close of trade, the nodal axis is pretty much on the galactic center, now only 2 minutes from the exactly 27-degree mark in Sagittarius, and is in conjunct to Saturn at that time. This could bring a dose of reality into the marketplace as the mystic rectangle weakens and the south node is intensified, bringing our past into the fold to meet us all head on. The philosophies of the past may be pushing to be dealt with as we reach the end of this week. Saturn won't accept shortcuts or loopholes. Just about a day prior, when Mercury transits the critical degree of 19 Cancer, we may be seeing a different side of what I am thinking could be a good looking week to start things off. With the Mars aspect, actions at this time could get even more rash, and impulsive buying and selling could march its way to Wall Street. Mercury making its opposition to Jupiter could mean miscommunication between heads of state, both domestic and otherwise, right? We could see political moves affecting the markets heavily because of this. Agreements or lack of agreements leading to shifts. We should really pay attention to the political theater around this week to see what the buildup indicates. Because Jupiter is in Capricorn, which rules banking, it could mean we see some more stimulus go through around this time, or news that it will be going through. This could add life to a dulling market. It seems to avoid some of the tension we could or should be experiencing. There is a need to dive further into the abstraction of money printing and digitized deposits, which lead us all investing further into the fantasies of an overinflated stock market, our castle in the clouds, with this Mercury trine Neptune, The grand cross between the Moon, Neptune, Venus, and the midheaven at the close of trade should add a focused touch to the markets, where the focus is most likely still on cures, pharmaceuticals, but with the grand cross, the tension and struggles are real. The conflicts are not easy to overcome. There is a constant source of tension underlying this configuration, and it makes me uneasy about the direction of the market as we head toward the end of the week. The shift of effects on the economy to a more political source seems like the deciding factor in the direction coming out of this week and also heading into August 1st. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you like this content. Please like, share, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications when I post in the future. I do apologize, I did say that this would be out on Monday. It ended up being a week and a day later. Still trying to format how I'm doing the videos. So yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media places at JSunAstrology, or just type in JSUN Astrology. You can message me on Facebook if you'd like a private consultation or reading with me. Feel free to reach out to me on any one of those platforms.